Should be live. Brand new, huh? Hard to see. Get started at 9 o'clock. When will end? Will end. I got that little closer. Thank you. I lost that yesterday, so I didn't have I wasn't feeling well yesterday. I had a little touch of food poisoning. I got tested for COVID and all of that. Didn't have COVID. Didn't have the flu, but a little touch of food poisoning. So y'all be careful where you go eat. I went to the spa. Yeah, real top of the line, restaurant. Yeah. So that's why I didn't dig for that, and I do apologize. I was out of here. I feel much better today, so I'm going to be here for it. I'll be here all day today. So we'll have a good time today. And we still have, I appreciate you all being here. Did you get a book? That's your book, right? They give it to you in the little thing. That's good. So thank you for all being here and bringing your books and stuff. You're going to do as well, right? And who might you be? Preston. Preston? That's Mr. Preston? Or just Preston. That's your first name or last? Okay, Preston. Good to meet you. You don't have a book? Have you been given a counselor yet? On papers. I don't know. You don't know? Don't ask this counselor? So. Oh. No, go ahead. Got it? All right. It is now. You guys got some. I'm wrong. President, it's not your counselor that gives you that, it's the intake counselor. But she's going to get you a book here pretty quick. But we still have like 5 minutes before we're going to get started. And why do we have to start exactly at 9 o'clock? Yeah, so it helps us fulfill our obligations and stuff like that. It's also, we have the other group, and they start at 9 o'clock, so we've got to be on time for those guys. Now let me ask you guys a question while we're waiting. I'd like to think that everybody in here is my friend. Is that true? Okay. I heard somebody say no. Man. Oh, man. That hurt my feelings. And the reason for that is this. I took my trailer. We're going on vacation. I'm already on vacation. I'm just here waiting to pull out. But I took it to the Fun Town RV thing yesterday to get it checked out, ready, to go, get the slide grease and all that kind of stuff. And while they were doing that, they found some roof rot. So they're going to have to replace part of my roof and all of that kind of stuff. That's probably going to cost some money. But I'm thinking about how on earth can I deal with that? And, you know, I believe it was God Almighty that told me, go to your friends and ask for a little, you know, a little offering. So, you know, if anybody's got a couple of $1,000, you know, I mean, it's a little unethical, but so, you know, Mark's been my friend for years. I will see him digging into the pocket. You know, I will tell you this morning, Miss Charday gave me 25 cents toward it.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, well, you know, I mean,
a little something better than nothing.
Well, that's what we talked about yesterday, about the 10%. It's 10%. You know, you get that 10% too. You know, 10%, 10%. Yes.
I know you got told us to get the lottery, so you got the money.
I got some money.
Yeah, you got some money. You told us to hit the lottery, though.
Yeah, I hit the lottery. I did. I won the lottery. But you can't live long on $3. And, you know.
There you go.
But that was something you could have did.
Can't do it.
Can't do it. Should have held on to it.
I saved it in an IRA or something. Find out what all.
Yeah. I retired 15 years ago, and you know, I said, well, I'm gonna hang out here, live on my 401k money. You know how fast that goes?
You're not telling me.
Oh yeah. So it wasn't long. My wife started saying stuff like, "You need to go back to work."
Mm-hmm.
And so I did. And I've never been really able to save a lot of money. So we'll do something. We are going. If I have to, you know, we have to go stay in hotels, but we're not going to do that either. It's going to be all right, I think.
Should be.
Well, I guess we can go ahead and get started. We're going to do a couple things today. First off, make sure that you get your name signed on the right sheet. We have 2 sheets out there. Y'all help the new folks who don't know exactly where that is, but I'm assuming everybody this morning is on the one that's marked HHSC, except for one person, Mr. Gold, who is on the other. So just make sure you get your name on the right sheet, and please make sure that I can read your name. And you ladies over at North know that I have to do that. I have to have that done correctly. And I'm going to be over there probably about 12 to pick up all that stuff. So if we could have all that in the box and everything, that'd be great. Everybody is supposed to have their book, bring their book to class, and be on page 21. We always start on page 21. And, you know, we're going to go over that, and then we're going to look at some other stuff. This week is about our physical health and recovery. And look, that's one of the things that's actually the easiest thing in the world to deal with. We have some issues, and most of us do. If you've been in your addiction for any period of time at all, then you have some physical issues, right? I mean, just being in an addiction will cause you to have some physical issues. And so we need to be working on that a little bit. But fortunately, that's one of the easiest ones. And again, this is not a weekly thing here. This is a stage that we're moving through. And so on the last day, the last stage is delineated as well. So we started out at poor. We have poor health. We're not doing anything about it. We got to a place where we were contemplating our health issues. And I'll tell you, if you have a health issue, you're contemplating it. You're thinking about it, right? You know you have an issue. So then we got to the place where we're preparing to do something about it. Here's the deal. There's a whole lot. It's just like our addiction. There's a whole lot of people out there that's wanting to do something about our addiction. You know, I can guarantee you, your family wants to do something about your addiction. It may not be getting you into a place of recovery, but at the very least, they want to get you out of their face for a while, right? Because you know, when we're there doing what we do, then it's problematic for our family. So we are preparing to do something. We're getting to a place, we said on Wednesday, that we're preparing to do something, getting ready to do it, and then we're going to take action. Once we take action, that means I'm exercising, I'm doing whatever I'm doing to try to make myself get to a better place. And then the last thing is to just keep doing it. Well, once I get to it, I don't need to stop. I need to continue doing whatever I'm doing. If it's just walking, if it's exercising like crazy, today is my gym day. I am going at my lunchtime. I'm going to be over at the gym over there grunting and sweating just like everybody else, you know, and I'm going to have a good time and all of that stuff. And then I'm going to come back over here and not do anything for the rest of the afternoon so I can get over it. Right? No, no, I got a lot of stuff to do this afternoon, but that is called maintenance. Once we get it moving to a certain place, once we get ourselves to where we're doing what's good for me, I need to continue doing what's good for me. I don't need to stop. This doesn't get over with. You are pleased with your physical health. At this stage, the maintenance stage, I'm pleased with my physical health and the ongoing efforts being made to maintain my physical health. Okay, well look, I'm working out 3 times a week. I've worked my stomach 7 times a week. I do all of that kind of stuff. Am I pleased with where I am physically? Not quite. No, I'm not quite, I'm not where I want to be. You know, I can't get my legs to work like I want them to work. I'm getting older, and it's kind of like running a foot race. The harder I run to get myself in shape, the harder age tries to kick me around and keep me from getting there. So I do understand that aspect of it as well, but, that's not going to stop me from trying to do something, right? So we're going to go that way. So we're gonna look at getting ourselves into a maintenance state. So what's the goal of the group today? What do you think the goal of the group today is? Our goal today is not to be distracted. A lot of us, and myself included, we get distracted in our recovery, right? If we start having cravings, we start having other people doing stuff that's going to get me off of where I'm supposed to be. We've got movies and television and all of that stuff that becomes a distraction, and we have all of these distractions in our life. So our goal for today is to limit the distractions in my life that's going to get me off the track that I'm going. So this is the painting this morning. And I know that over at North, you just see a bunch of little squiggly lines or something like that. But what do you think this is about?
Distraction.
Yeah, look at it, guys. That is brilliant. It's about distraction. Like Miss Roxanne this morning coming into the group. What is she? A distraction. Yeah. She's a distraction. But in the world, when we get out of here, we do have some distractions in here. But they're necessary. But when we get out of here and we're back where we're supposed to be, we get back to wherever we're going to be in the world, and we're out of treatment, we're back in our own recovery, what are we going to have? Lots of distractions. So he's looking over this way because these things are distracting for him. What are they? Yeah. We see some booze over here. That's probably booze, right? Yeah, Bob's place. Yeah, I used to be females. I used to be at Bob's place all the time. This one is maybe a female. This one's maybe a guy. So with the ladies, it could be guys that may become a distraction. With the guys, it may be girls that become a distraction. It could be the opposite of all of that. But what this what this represents is old people, places, and things. We will be distracted by old people, places, and things. And let me share this with you, and take it wherever you want to take it. You know, that's your business. But I don't make very many guarantees because it's hard to make guarantees because there's always an outlier. If you can guarantee somebody something, guaranteed there's going to be somebody that's going to beat that. Yeah, you know, there's going to be that outlier. And when we look at that outlier, we think that that's true for everybody, and it's not. Not true for everybody. It's true for that individual or true for those 10 individuals, but it's not true for everybody. So I'm probably going to be the one that it's not true for. Both. Here's the guarantee. If you go back to old people, places, and things, you will relapse. If you don't go back to old people and places and things, you may relapse. There's no guarantee that you won't relapse if you stay away from old people, places, and things. There is a guarantee that if you go back to old people, places, and things, your chances of relapsing are like 99%. Oh, they're way, way up there. So that is the universal relapse triggers. That's the relapse triggers that are true for everybody. And that's it's kind of hard because there's people in our lives that we want to have in our life. But remember those people before they were in your life, they were not in your life. So now you can make new people, put new people in your life, healthy people, healthy relationship, and stuff like that. So what he's doing, he's looking over here at, this is obviously some kind of drug you can smoke, whatever it might be, rolled up in there, something you can shoot, pit, skin pop or something, whatever, intravenous or skin pop or something. This is some kind of booze or something that's in a bottle that's not good. And then Bob's Place, I used to be a regular at Bob's Place, and I kept the place open a bunch. Now he's distracted from all of the stuff that would be good for us. And I was going to put a whole lot of other stuff, or should have put a whole lot, because there's a whole lot of other stuff over here that should be over here. But there's stuff like the spiritual life. He's distracted from being spiritual. He's distracted from going to church and all of that kind of stuff. And also, my AA group meets in that church. And so he's distracted from going to his AA group, all that kind of stuff, right? He's also distracted from this guy. Who is he?
Sponsor.
Yeah. That's his sponsor, who's also meeting in that group at that church. So he's distracted from that as well. So all of these things over here are distracting him from going and doing the things that he knows he needs to do to stay sober. Do we need people in our lives to stay sober?
Yes.
Yes, we do. This is something we really don't want to try to do by ourselves. Have you ever tried to do it by yourself?
Yes.
I have. The first couple of times I did it myself. I don't need no. Okay, all right. And the fact that it didn't work the first time did not faze me. But the second time it didn't faze. About the third time I started saying, this ain't working too well. Had to get some other help. So a lot of this, look, we're talking about distractions and all of that kind of stuff. But what are they distracting from? What are we being distracted from?
Your sobriety.
Your sobriety, the life of recovery, all of those kinds of things. So what we're doing is looking at avoiding what?
Relapse.
Oh yeah, there you go. I want to avoid relapse. And we're going to be talking about that. How does that play into this week's theme of physical health? Because if I relapse, what? Absolutely. I'm going to screw up all of the health that I have been working on. So this is working on not relapsing. Relapse prevention. Now here's the very first thing about relapse prevention. What determines if I'm going to relapse or not? Yeah, I got to get serious about it. Do you believe there's people who come through treatment who are not serious? Absolutely. The statistics are astounding. But most people who come through treatment are not there to get into a life of recovery. We're there for whatever we're there for. A lot of us are in here because, parole said so. Some of us are in because probation said so. A lot of people are in because mama said so, or baby said so, or husband said so, or wife said so. A lot of people. I got one guy that's in. He's doing pretty well, but he's not in recovery. He's in sobriety. He's not using, but he's not in a recovery lifestyle yet. But he's in that sobriety because his daughter, who is 6, told him she wanted him to quit drinking. And so he's in his sobriety because of that. Let's see how quickly she did that. She did that so well. She did that so easily. So that and that's a big. If he's not in it, we have to be in this for ourselves, or it's not going to work. We have to be committed. We have to be real. We have to be true to ourselves. We have to say, okay, this is what I want in life. What does a person get in life? You get what you put into it, and you also get whatever you really want. If you want to be a cowboy, what are you going to do? If you really, this is what's inside of you. This is what's your driving force. What are you going to do? You're going to go get a cowboy hat. Yeah. You're going to get you a horsey. Turn yourself into a cowboy. You're going to start riding a horse. When I first moved out to where we are, we got some land out there and stuff. My wife built a big old arena there where she would play with horses. We used to have like 6 or 8 horses at the ranch. We finally got rid of all those things. Praise God. But you usually wind up doing what you really want. So if you don't really want to be in recovery, you're not going to get in recovery. You have to be at the place where you really want it. Because if I really want it, I'm going to do what's necessary to get it done. So if I relapse easily and quickly, that's because I'm not really wanting to get it done. If you want to be a world-class bodybuilder, what do you have to do? You got to go do the work. If you want to be a world-class person in recovery, same thing, same concept. You got to go do the work. And so, when we don't want to do the work, we're not going to be able to do that. So we're going to look at some tips for avoiding relapse. And the very first one is stay away from old people, places, and things. Now, look, I've said that probably 1,000 times in my career or more. I've been doing this for quite a while. But I will tell you, when I say that, I do realize how hard that is. Now, the reason we say people first, that's the hardest one. That's the hardest thing to do. I've had people ask and tell me, you can't tell me not to go back to my mom. Well, yeah, I understand that. Telling my mother, I'm not coming back to your house is the hardest thing in the world. That's hard to do. But if your mother, now I'm not saying anybody's mom is, and I hope nobody's mom is, but if your mom is a stone cold alcoholic, or if your mom's a crack addict, you need to stay away from mama. You need to do that. Because if you don't, you won't stay in recovery. And some of us are married to the addict, right? Some of us, if we're not married, we've been with that person for 20 years, and now all of a sudden, hey, we've got to do something different. That's hard. That's hard. But when we come down to whether I want to recover or not, if I'm just taking a break, then okay. But if I really want to get in recovery and stay in recovery, I'm going to have to get that guy or kick that girl to the curb. And the same thing goes for brothers and sisters and uncles and aunts and cousins, grandmas. All if they're using still, can't be around them. Can't do that. If I do, then my recovery's out the window. And then the other two things are, they're not easy either. They're a lot easier than getting rid of family and friends, but it's still not easy if we stay away from old people. Places, things, there's places where I like to do. There's things I like to do, but if I can't do those things. I had a guy years ago who had a BUI. What's that?
Voting under the influence.
Voting under the influence. You're not allowed to drive your boat while you're drunk. So one of the things, and he got like 3, and he was in our program, and he said, "What are you trying to tell me? I got to get rid of my boat?" Yeah, you don't have to get rid of it, but you can't go out on it anymore. You can't have it sitting in your yard because it's a trigger, and you can't go sit on your boat because it's a trigger, and you probably ought to stop. You ought to give up fishing because it's a trigger. And if you go fishing on the bank and you watch the boats go by, that's a trigger. So you might ought to, I don't know, take up sewing, start making your own clothes or something. Do something different. You might need to do that if you're really. We need to get that serious about our recovery. If we're not that serious about our recovery, we're not going to be in recovery. Not going to do it. So if I'm not willing to quit the crap that I used to do, okay, we're not going to be in there. And you just need to know that about ourselves. I need to be able to take a look at that and say, okay, I'm not willing to give up this. I'm not willing to give up that person or that place or that thing. I'm not willing to do that. Okay, then I'm taking the chance. Now, you may be able to make it because of outliership, but if you're not willing to give up those things, you probably are willing to give up your recovery instead. Probably. There's an outside chance, maybe not, but probably you are. You are giving up the recovery. We have to give up something in this. It's either you give up the recovery or you give up all of that other stuff. Here's some tips to avoid relapse. And look, they'll work, but what makes them work? You're doing them. They work if you work it. You've heard that? Yeah. Okay. So here's the deal. The most important moment before relapse isn't that final decision to use a drug. That's not the final, that's not the most important. It's when you decide to expose yourself to a trigger. Y'all get a hold of that? The most important thing is not when you make the decision to use the drink or to use the drug or to take the shot or to do whatever it is. It's when you decide to expose yourself to that trigger. Some of my triggers are, if I exposed myself to those triggers, they would be a trigger. So that's why we say stay away from old people, places, and things. They're all triggers for you, triggers for me, triggers for everybody. So if I expose myself to those triggers, that's when that begins. And look, I've had people come and tell me, I hear what you're saying, but it's impossible. Impossible. If you look at them, some of them are really, really, really tough to do, but rarely are they impossible. They seem to be impossible. Why? Because I don't want to do them. I don't want to do it. So that I make it impossible for myself. So it says, look, it's when you decide to expose yourself to triggers. For example, a trigger could be going to a party. Would that trigger you? That would trigger me.
Yeah.
Going to a party was a trigger for me. Walking through the liquor section at the store. Would that trigger for you? That's a trigger for me. I can remember the day when there was no liquor in the store. There wasn't any. But now, you go to Market Basket, man. They got 2 aisles full of wine and beer. And this is a Market Basket. H-E-B, Kroger, every place you go. If you go to Kroger, you walk around this way and you go around like that, and here's the bakery. They got a lot of bakery stuff there, which is a trigger for me. And then over here, they got sushi, which is not a trigger for me. And I can do without that. I don't eat raw food. But if you keep going, there's a whole big old display full of booze. So yes, that's a trigger. And you can get triggered by just passing by Kroger. Because you look over there and you know that place full of booze. There's a liquor store in there. So it's all over the place. So it's just going through there and walking down through there. Here's the deal. Before encountering your triggers, you still have most of the control. You still have most of the control. At this point in time, you are not craving. Right? At that point in time, you still have most of the control. But when you go and you expose yourself to a known trigger because that's what you want to do, when I go to Market Basket, look, I've been in my recovery quite a few years. But when I go into Market Basket, I go down the front aisle like that because I have to go all the way to the back because I buy a little thing of milk every now and then because I like milk with some stuff. And so, but I go in and I go all the way down the back, which it would be a little bit shorter to go down the front, go around that way. But if you go down the front, go around that way, you got to walk through the alcohol aisle. And that's not something I'm going to do because that could be triggering, right? Now, I've been sober long enough that I can walk through that aisle without it being triggering, but I still go down that way, because that's the practice that I have built into my life. So at that point in time, you're not craving. You still have most of your control before you have encountered those triggers. I'm not craving right now. I haven't encountered any of those triggers and all of that kind of stuff. So, it would behoove me to first off what? Know what my triggers are. So I need to know what triggers me. There's some music that can trigger me. There's some smells that can trigger me. There's a lot of people that can trigger me. There's places like Bob's place that can trigger me. There's things that can trigger me. I used to, my grandson was played football a lot when he was growing up. Going to the football game, is that triggering for anybody? It's triggering for me because when you go to the football game, what do they sell out there? Beer and hot dogs. Yeah. And so, you go to the football game and they sell beer and hot dogs. That's what you get. Now, that's at the big guy football game. But if you go to the little guy football game, they don't sell beer there. It's the school. But that still brings that to my mind. Because I remember going to the football game and before it's over with, that $27 watered down beer, you'd have too much of that. And somebody would object to the fact that you had to go to the bathroom and you were tinkling in the bleacher.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't like that. They don't like that. I don't know. I don't understand it. But so until that trigger is in your life, you're still in control. Once the trigger gets in your life, then you may still be in control, but not to the same level. Your control begins to slip once the trigger is in your life. So that's one trick. One thing, you need to know your personal trigger. What's my personal trigger? What triggers me? I don't care about everybody else. What triggers me? And when we look at triggers, we know the universal triggers are old people, places, and things. Those things are going to trigger you. They will trigger you. And we can lie to ourselves all day long. And I have people sit in my office and lie to me. Well, they don't bother me. Okay, lie to yourself as much as you want to. Lie to me. But always lies will be found out. The truth will out. When I'm talking to somebody and they say, well, it doesn't bother me. Well, how many times have you relapsed? Well, I've relapsed 4 times. Well, what is the central theme of that relapse? Well, going back to be with my girl or my guy, or, so that's what you need to work on. So we need to know that. Secondly, if you're feeling the urge to use, I felt the urge to use yesterday. Not booze, sugar. Y'all know I'm in recovery from sugar. So, I felt the urge to use yesterday. There was a thought, I'm not feeling well. I don't feel good. I have to go to the doctor. I have to get a COVID test. I have to do this. I have to do that. All of that kind of crazy mess. And so, you know what? I need just to make myself feel a little bit better. I need like a gallon of ice cream or something. Yeah. Just as one, let's make it a sweet day, have a little time. So, that starts running through your mind. You start thinking about all of those things. And so you have this urge to go ahead and use a little bit of something. What is the famous saying that's gotten a whole bunch of them? One more time. One won't hurt me. I'm a full-grown man, full-grown woman. I can use no, you can't. It's just like those chips. Nobody can eat just one. An addict can't use just one. Why do we stop drinking? There's no more alcohol in the world. It's all been drank up. It's all gone. We can't. There's just that's the only reason we're going to quit. So if you're feeling the urge to use. At that point in time, we need to understand what that is. It's an urge. It's an urge. Urges last how long?
8 minutes.
Up to about 8 minutes. Up to, they sometimes leave in 30 seconds to a minute, or they can last up to 8 minutes. And look, 8 minutes is not a long time, but 8 minutes is a lifetime. 8 minutes is a long time with your limbic system screaming at you. You have to use it, you will die. You have to use it, you will die. That's a long time, but here's the deal. We can wait it out. So when the urge comes, we talked about urge surfing. Get up here and just let that thing go for a little bit. Know that this is going to be gone. Within 8 minutes, it's going to be gone. Have you ever... and this has happened to me. Have you ever headed out to go somewhere and your car just kind of automatically pull into the liquor store? I've done that. I know, look, I don't need this. I don't want this. I don't want this junk in my life. I know what it has done to me and for me and all of this stuff. So I don't ever want to use again, but my car just kind of seems to pull in there. And I'm sitting out front of the liquor store and I'm telling myself, I'm not going in there. I just came here to look at the place, but I'm not going in there. But, well, maybe I'll go in there. And so then I walk in the place and I'm looking around. And the guy says, can I help you? No, I'm here to buy some pickled pig feet. He said, well, we're all out of pickled pig feet. We don't have those anymore. Walking around and looking, and there's a pint of vodka sitting up there. I bet you could tickle a pig's foot in that pint of vodka. So I can't come into this store and walk around. And that boy up there, he's just trying to make a living. And I can't come in this and not buy something. You got to buy. I'm not going to use this. I am not going to use this crap, but I can't. Yeah, and it's the stuff back when I was using the stuff that I drank cheap. Yeah. Cheap. So it's about $2.69 for a pint of this junk. So I'd go, well, I'll take this, and then I'm just going to throw this away. So I go by there and say, yeah, okay, thank you. And I'm walking out. I put that stuff under my seat. I am not using that. I'm going to get ride around, get in the car, go around to the back of the liquor store. And the reason I'm telling the story, this actually happened to me more than once. I pull around to the back of the liquor store, and I'm sitting there looking at the trees, watching the squirrel, and it's like an automatic. Yeah. Pull it out, pop it open. About half of that pint is gone. I'm going to throw the rest of that. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I'd throw half of it away. But I'm going to tell you what, I always knew where I threw it. Because I'd go back in an hour and get it. Because my mind is brilliant. And my mind is telling me, you spent money on that. That is a waste. God gave you a little bit of money, and you can't waste. So I won't waste it. I went back and I got it. But that urge that got me started would, if I had said no, if I'd have kept going and not stopped at that store, that thing would have been over with in just a few minutes. And I know, back then I knew where every liquor store was. And I knew where to stop. I knew where the best, the cheapest was. And that's what the best was. I found some, and I know y'all know all the vodka names and all of that, Smirnoff and all of that stuff. I one time bought a pint of vodka that was Tom's vodka. Y'all ever heard of that? I had never heard of it. I bought it. It was years and years ago. The most rot gut stuff I had ever experienced. I have never seen it before that. In a little old, I bought it in a liquor store that used to be a liquor store 35, 40 years ago in Anahuac, Texas. It's not one. There hadn't been one. I think it's a lawyer's office now. But I've never seen Tom's vodka before, and I've never seen it since. And it's a good thing. That stuff is horrible. It's terrible. But it was like $1. So, I was looking at it as something good. If you distract yourself for 30 minutes. Now, we're looking up here at distractions. These are the distractions we don't want to have in our lives. But if something's going on that's going to kick my butt, something's going on, that I have this urge to use alcohol, drugs, whatever. If I use some of these positive distractions, everywhere you look, there's a gym.
Yeah.
Everywhere you look, they're like Baptist churches. You go around the block here, you run into 4 Baptist churches. And if you go around the block the other way, you run into 5 gyms. So if I go to the gym, is that going to keep me from relapsing? Maybe not, but it can help. Maybe it will. Maybe it will. Because if I go in there and do that, work out real good, that's going to release some endorphins into my mind, and I'm going to feel good and all of that stuff and feel good about myself. So if I can distract myself for even 30 minutes, then it's going to take away the urge. It's going to get that urge out of there. I can also go to a meeting. Most of the time when you go to a meeting, what do you go to a meeting for? A distraction most of the time. A lot of times I go to meetings for coffee and cookies. We have some ladies in our group that makes cookies. And if you go to the AA meeting and you get a cup of coffee, the coffee is free, the cookies are free. You can leave an offering if you want to, but they're all free. And if you're a diabetic, you can sit down there and you can tell yourself, it's okay to eat a cookie here because this is AA, and I'm supposed to be here so I can eat one of those cookies. But it is a great lots and lots and lots and lots of people come there for a distraction. Absolutely. You almost made it. Good half an hour. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a good place for a distraction, right? We can distract ourselves for 30 minutes. We can go in there, be there for an hour, and while I'm in there, I'm not going to use it. So it's likely, whatever we're doing, those cravings are going to lessen in severity and intensity. And that's what I need to get past that. If I can get past that, it's going to help me a whole lot. It may not totally disappear, but it's going to become easier to resist. Time is our friend. If I could stay off of the stuff longer and longer and longer, it's going to be helpful. Right? It's going to help. If I can skip it today, that's why we talk about just doing it one day at a time. Because some of us are pretty young in here, and if I think about I'm not going to use again, and that's 30, 40, 50 years down the road, that seems a little overwhelming. But if I'm just going to not use it today, just today, I may use it tomorrow, but I'm not using it today, then that's going to help me get through that. It's going to lessen the intensity. Why is that? Because my limbic system is screaming at me that if I don't use it, I'm going to die. So if I tell my limbic system, see, my limbic system's lying to me because you're not going to die. The way you'll die is to keep using. So I'm not going to die. So it's lying to you, telling you you're going to die. But then I'm going to lie to it back and say, okay, I'm going to use. But I'm not using today. I'm going to use tomorrow. Right? And so that'll give you a reprieve until tomorrow. And what's the old adage? Tomorrow never comes. Tomorrow never comes. Because when it's tomorrow, that's today. And so I'm not using today, I'll use tomorrow. Right? So that's got it can be helpful. Does it work every time for every person? No. Nothing is absolute that way. God is God. That's an absolute. But going on and getting some of these things to work for us is not going to happen for every person every day. You're leaving us? Yeah. Made it half an hour, man. It's amazing to me. All right. So here's the other thing. This is good. We're going to do a little something different about that stuff. We're going to do that differently tomorrow. Not tomorrow, maybe Monday. This is a good tip for avoiding relapse. Focus on replacing your past drug use with some new positive activities. I know that, look, most of this sounds sophomoric, most of this sounds simple, but look, that's some of the stuff that's going to work. Instead of going down to the store to get a nice cold beer, do something different. First off, don't go down to that store. I've stopped going to the dollar store because in the dollar store, especially the dollar store over here, I've poo-pooed that dollar store a couple of times for you guys. If you go in there, they have these whole boxes full of moon pies, whole boxes full of all kinds of snack cakes and all of that for $1.25. You know, the dollar stores are just about gone. You go to a dollar, used to be everything was 99 cents. You go to a dollar store now, they got stuff in there for $20 in a dollar store. That don't make sense to me. But this one over here has stuff $1.25. You can get 6 moon pies. Now those moon pies are all that big around. They're small moon pies, but they're 6 moon pies. And since they're small, when I pull one out, eat it, it tastes like a moon pie. And I like moon pie. So, but they're little. So I can eat one. Maybe I can eat 2 of them because maybe like 3 of them are only the size of one regular moon pie. So if I eat 3 of them, okay, that's only like eating 1 moon pie. But there's 6 in the box. And so I'm going to eat all 6 of them, right? Because I'm an addict. Right? So I'm going to eat all 6 of them, but that's only like eating 2 of them, right? So, say it again?
I said that's what you tell yourself.
Yeah. That's what I'm telling myself and all of that kind of stuff. So that's why I don't go to the dollar store because it's in there and it's going to get me and all of that kind of stuff. You all right? You okay? Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm just, listening to you a little bit
And disagreeing with everything I say.
not disagreeing.
Is that okay?
There's two ways to, like you were saying, going to the gym. I got a different way of doing it. I was doing it myself.
Okay.
I go running.
And that'll work.
Yeah, but I don't go to the gym.
And you don't have to go to a gym. And he was saying, look, he's got a different way of doing that. But he's doing the same thing. He's exercising. And that's a good way to do that. If you can go and run and do that stuff, I prefer going to the gym for a couple of reasons. I like working out. And I like being social. So there's a whole lot of people in there that you can be social with. And so that helps us on 2 different levels. You know, but if you don't want to, it's good. We as addicts, we need to become pro-social because we're antisocial usually when we're using. So it's good to be with a group of people. But here's the deal. When I go to the gym over there, and I got another gym in Anahuac that I visit from time to time, my insurance pays for it. Because when you reach a certain age, Medicaid will pay for your gym. A lot of time going to the gym, you have to pay for that. Sometimes we don't have the money in our back pocket to go to those gyms. So running, like you said, that's a good substitute for that.
Yeah, especially what's the age for it?
I think it's 65 or something. You're way too young, man. You're way too young. Yeah, you got to be. Don't you have to be 65 before you get Medicaid or Medicare or whatever you got? Yeah. So yeah, you're way too young. So if you used to go home after work and drink, you'll need to make a new plan to occupy yourself. Y'all ever heard of a geographical escape? That means that I've moved from one place to another place. Now, that's not always doable for a lot of people. You know, right now, my wife designed our house and all of that stuff, so she ain't going anywhere, right? But I did do a geographical escape. But if you're around a whole lot of people that's going to help you use and all of that kind of stuff, and there's people in your house or stuff, sometimes it's a good idea in that town if you're known in that town for what you do and how you do it and all of that stuff. Sometimes it's a good idea to take up stakes and go to another town. Is there drugs, alcohol, and all that mess is in every town you go to. You can't go to. I live in a little bitty town. It's there. It's there. You know. But here's the deal. If you move yourself, that means that when you get there, what you're going to have to do is pick new people, places, and things to be involved in. Because whenever you move, what do you always take with you? Your addiction goes with you, and you're there, you know. So wherever you go, there you are. So you're not going to be able to change yourself, but you would be able to change people, places, and things, and you can do the positive thing. You know. So if you used to go home after work, find yourself another plan. Going home, look, this is another thing. Going home and staring at a wall will not work. You go home and just stare at the wall, watch television, do all of those kinds of things. That's not going to work. You're going to have something to do. At my house, I have 2 exercise machines. Both of them are on the back porch, and I haven't used either one of them in a whole long time. But if you have something like that, you can go home, you can do those things. I would love to do that. One of them, we'd have to chip off all of the rust, because it just ain't no good no more. The other one, and I'm sure that there's people in here who can do it. When it was in my office at my house, and it's so big. It's got the pulls and the pull down. It's got all of those things in it, and it was so big that it was filling up my office. So I finally tore it down, and I tore it all to pieces, and it's laying on my back porch. So I will tell you what I'll do. I don't know where we would put that out. It's a big old thing. But I'll talk to Mr. Farmer, and if he's okay with it, I will donate it. I'll bring it up here and put it out in the back, or y'all can put it out in the back. Somebody will have to figure out how to put that thing back together. Yeah. So that's something I'll talk with the boss man about. So here's the deal. Going home staring at the wall is not something we need to do. Y'all remember that old song? I can't remember it either right now, but it was a good one. It was good. Don't tell me I've got nothing to do. I'm staring at the wall, counting something on the wall or on the ceiling, watching Captain Kangaroo. Don't tell me I've got nothing to do. So we don't need to go and watch Captain Kangaroo and do all that kind of stuff. But we need to do something, because going home and staring at the wall eventually will lead us to staring at a wall with a drink in our hands. We will do that after a while. One of the things that we need to do while we're in here, if we're going back to the same home, and some of us are, if we're going back to the same home, whoever is there waiting on you needs to clean that house from top to bottom. It needs to be a nice, clean house when you get there. And what that means is your booze that you've got stashed and your drugs that you have stashed need to be gotten out of there. I was doing a group for the best group about 20 years ago, and there was a lady sitting there, and my admin came in and went over to her and whispered something in her ear and went back out, which she got talked to about doing that afterward. That's not what you do. And that lady said, "Hey, Doc, I got to leave." I said, "Okay. Why do you have to leave?" She said, "My girlfriend, who's at my house, just called and said somebody called the police and they're coming to my house. I said, so why do you got to go? She said, well, there's something in my closet that I have to get out.
You have to not.
She have to get it out of there.
Did you help?
No, I didn't help her. Y'all know I'm a narc. I told her. I said, look, you know, you can't just walk out of group. You can't just leave group. And she said, can I go make a phone call? I said, okay. So we let her make a phone call. She came back. She said, everything's fine. The girlfriend had taken care of her. Then a couple of days later, she came back. She is mad as wet setting in. She ticked off. I said, what's the deal? She said, I'm mad at that girl. I let her live in my house and all of this kind of stuff, and she used all my cocaine. She was trying to keep the police. She's keeping. So that's how she took care of the stash that was in the closet. She went and snorted all that cocaine, you know, and now she's mad at her for that. And look, you're in recovery. You're sitting in a treatment facility, and you're mad because somebody used the cocaine that you got stashed at your house. You know, a lot of us in here, same thing. You know, we got plans to use again. And so, you know, you think she was planning on using again?
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. And she was ticked off because in treatment, she couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. So, get some positive activities going on in your life. Now, look, I want y'all to hear this one. This is important. Don't try to do this by yourself. Can you do it by yourself? No. Yeah, there's a possibility. There's a possibility. There's always that outlier that you can do it by yourself. But, you know, I have people tell me, well, I don't need treatment. I've done it by myself. Y'all ever heard that? Yeah. You didn't do it. Look, and I have to tell people, you're wrong. You didn't do it by yourself. It didn't work. You're back in treatment. You relapsed after you did it by yourself. Because here's the deal. We all know our own addiction, right? We all know our own issue, right? But we don't know how to get out of it. If we did, we'd be out of it. We wouldn't be up here if we did. So we don't know how to do it. So don't try to do it on your own. Sharing your goals for sobriety with a friend sometimes makes all the difference. Sometimes it makes all the difference. It's according to what our goals are.
And it's called who your friend is too.
It's also according to who your friends are. You know, you don't want to go to your pusher that meets you on the corner every Thursday and say, hey, look, man, I'm trying to get sober. You need to help me get sober. He's not about that. He's not going to do that. Also, you're using friends. You're using family members. Hey, cuz, I know, look, man, we've had some good time, but I'm trying to get sober and stay sober. You know, he's not about that. They love you when you're high or you're drunk because that's when they know you. They don't know you sober. So, here's the deal. If the friend is sober and in recovery, whatever, then they can make a difference. They can hold you accountable when you make questionable decisions. Like the guy that went into the bar because his friend's truck was there. I didn't go in to drink, but there was a parking spot there right next to his truck. And so I parked right next to his truck to go in and talk to him about getting out of the bar. I was a little bit thirsty because I had to circle the block 12 times before that parking lot became available, that parking spot. So I finally got in the parking spot, and then when I went in there, I was thirsty already, and something happened, this happened, that, and so I relapsed. What was the first mistake? Driving by the bar, thinking that I'm going to go get Bubba out of the bar. I'm going to let Bubba stay in the bar. My sobriety, my recovery is worth more to me than Bubba. Do you want Bubba to get into recovery? Absolutely. But that's his business. I ain't going to go do that. We had a lady come to our group at church. She'd been sober for about a year, doing pretty good, and she had a lot of friends down there and invite her, and there's some drugs invite her, and she said, well, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna help them get into. I said, look, you've been in recovery a year. You're not ready to go help anybody else. You have to help yourself. She said, well, I know what God has called me to do, so I'm going to go on down there. I said, maybe you ought to ask God again, because I don't believe that's what he's asking you to do. And she said, well, okay. Never heard from her again. She's back out there somewhere. She's in the mix down there. Yeah, so who knows? So anyway, they can help you. I'm just going to the bar to hang out. Y'all know the guy that I told you that he's in recovery because his daughter told him she wanted him in recovery? Goes to the bar every Friday night.
And that's the one that keep the liquor night under the seat, right?
Yeah, he's the one. Yeah, he's the one that's playing pool. He said, I just go down there to play pool. No, he doesn't. He goes down there to watch other people drink, to smell the booze, to get in that environment. He likes the lifestyle. Ain't gonna be long. Ain't gonna be long. He keeps a bottle of booze in his icebox. Goes by there and opens it up and looks at it. Said, I just do that to show myself where I've come. No, you're not. You're testing yourself. What happens when we test ourselves? Eventually, you're going to fail that test. Yeah, you're going to fail that. And you're going to fail a test sooner or later. So we should never test ourselves. I've had people tell me, I think that's a real good idea. Well, yeah, you would, addict person. You got stupid thoughts running through you. Yeah, I want that booze near me. I'm just testing myself. You want that booze near you. That's what it is. So yeah, that's not a good plan. So don't try to do it alone. Look, just going to the bar to hang out. I'm not going to drink. I've heard people say that a lot. And they can offer a kind ear when you're struggling. Y'all know the group, Alabama? Anybody a country and western fan? Yeah. Well, I had a lady that was in our group whose son was the lead guitarist for the group, Alabama. That's a big deal. That's a big group. That group's got a lot. I mean, they're probably all billionaires or something. But he came to town, and the group didn't come. It was just him. And so he was going to play at this, wherever he was playing. It was a bar. And so she told me, she said, well, my son, he plays he's lead guitarist for Alabama, man. I'm going to go here and play. I said, well, where is he playing? She said, in this certain bar. I said, well, you can't go over there. She said, now, I'll tell you something. You can't tell me not to go listen to my baby play the guitar up there. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to support him. So, okay. All right. So she went down there. He was there for about a week. She went down there 3 days running. And on the third day, she was drunk and she slept on the pool table all night long. Son went home, left her butt there, sleeping on. Her ex-husband had come by, knew that she drank Tom Collins, and while she's sitting there listening to her son play the guitar, he put a Tom Collins in front of her. And this is what she told us afterward at the group. She's out of the group about 2 weeks, and then she came back. And she said it was just kind of automatic. It wasn't my fault, really, seriously. It was just kind of automatic. I just when I was sitting there and I was listening to the music, and I just grabbed it and I drank it. And she said, immediately I knew I had messed up, I had screwed up, and I put that thing down. And she said, I might as well just go head on. And she said, I drank them until I couldn't drink anymore, and then wound up on the pool table. Don't know what happened after that. So if it was my son don't play anything but the radio, and he doesn't play it really well. But if it was my son that was playing lead guitarist for Alabama or Black Sabbath or whoever it is, and I wanted him to come play the guitar, I would tell that boy, come to my house. You're going to be over here. All my friends are coming that like that kind of crazy music, and we're going to listen to you. Going to come down here. That's my son. He's going to come to my house and play the guitar for me. He's staying with me while he's here, but I'm not going to the bar to listen to him. I'm not going to put myself in danger just to listen to that boy play the guitar, right? That make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So we're not going to try to do this on our own. We do need some help. If I don't have a friend who's sober and who's willing, who should I talk to?
One of your sponsors.
got a sponsor, got a group of sober friends. You've got some people there at AA and NA that you can talk to. You know, if you go to church, or synagogue or temple or whatever you go to, you have a leader there that you can go and talk to. Talk to people all the time about all kinds of stuff. I got to go this weekend and talk to a lady who lost her husband. He died yesterday at 8:15 in the morning, which he's 95, 98, something like that. Very old gentleman, but he's passed away, so I've got to go talk to her about that. But there are people in the church that you can talk to. That's their job. That's what they do. You know, so if you don't have that friend, you can do that, right? All right. So look, we've gone about halfway through it. We're going to go ahead and take our break now. Y'all go take your break, and we'll come back 15 minutes after. We'll be in here again.
Make sure you get, go 16 weeks. See you going in. Sure. She said she is that the right side? Huh? Oh, oh, that's what you did with it.
somebody.
So, man,
How about that?
that's good. You get yourself comfortable.
Yeah.
It's different.
You right along with it.
It's different when you say,
Right along with you. You know it.
huh? Awesome. No, no. No, no.
You just went this way. That damn cup of walking. You.
Yes.
Oh, boy, Lord.
Oh yeah, I like it.
Sure.
Yeah, I like it.
Let me know.
Uh,
Let me know.
well, I don't need that shit anyway. It's good, like,
You said you got keys for me? You got keys for me?
Peace.
Yeah. Okay. No car.
I see you find a goddamn cup. I was.
Looking for the car
You
keys?
weren't worried about it.
They right there hanging on. They hanging right
We look fooling people, man. Look at people. Yeah, man. All right. I don't know. What is this?
Hey, watch. I watch the shit. Sir.
I thought it was gonna turn out. Go! Why? Shoot, man. Please find your notes.
You gave me like 3 or 4.
Huh?
Huh?
Only you. I'm gonna be that type of nigga with, what color doing the cigarette that time?
Short-term memory loss.
For all the other ones?
You gonna get mad now. Will you chill the fuck out? Fuck, man.
I'm just playing.
Y'all listen. Yes.
That's why I wish I had my own shit. Bullshit like this.
Bullshit.
No, it's not, I mean, it's not bullshit, but I mean, joking around about it like this. That's why I act hard before I act free. So, one at a time. I hate asking shit. I do. Oh, we're good. Okay. That's not the point. I promised them secrets for the day. He's trying to get it free. Oh my God. Whatever, man.
Hey, who got a cigarette that needs to go home?
Who got what?
Huh?
I need a cigarette, nigga, alone. I don't care how many you got left. Give me a
I don't
cigarette.
have none.
I just need a
I'm
cigarette.
waiting on something.
I'm waiting on a cigarette. Who back there got a cigarette?
What is cigarette? I'm gonna give me a cigarette. I mean, you know, cigarette. There you go.
I need my cigarette. Well, man, y'all need to get to work, boy. Oh, yeah. I'm welcome. You know, your ass. Yeah. Woo! Oh, jeez, please. no mess. Papa don't say no mess. My mama cried when Papa died. Living in America. I don't know who to do. I don't.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being back on time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being late.
Well, I'm not all that bad.
You don't get no donut.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. We're back. Thank everybody for being in their place, and I've already been threatened with no donuts because I was 30 seconds late. But we're going to talk about a few more tips for avoiding relapse. Why are we talking about tips for avoiding relapse? Yeah, let me share this with you. In our recovery, the most important thing about our recovery is not to relapse. We don't want to go back. Even if we're relapsing, we're not in recovery. We're not in recovery. And look, we need to, and I've had people talk to me about that and tell me that, hey, you know, they can use this and they can use that. And look, if we're still using drugs or alcohol, we are not in our recovery. That's just the way that is. A life recovery is the difference between sobriety and recovery. What's the difference? Sobriety is being sober. And that's a good thing. That's where we need to go. That's where we need to start. Because sobriety is just not using it. The time, but if we quit today but use on Sunday, then today when we quit until we use on Sunday, we're in sobriety. We're just not using. That's sobriety. Just being sober for a minute. Every drunk, every addict gets into sobriety from time to time. That's just the way it is. Recovery is a lifestyle change. There are things we can't do. There are things we're going to change. There are things we're going to do differently. It's a lifestyle change. See, our lifestyle in the past is going to the bars. Our lifestyle in the past was having booze at my house. The lifestyle in the past was being with family and friends who used, just like I did. Our lifestyle in the past was doing things and going to places where that's what happened there. A lifestyle change means I'm staying away from old people, places, and things. I'm changing everything all around me, everything. I'm not backing that. If there's something in my life that even looks like using, I'm not there anymore. So it's a whole complete, total lifestyle change. And look, I've had to tell some people, this is my lifestyle now. You can either fit in that or get out of it. This is my lifestyle. I'm not going to fit myself to fit your lifestyle. I'm not changing to fit your lifestyle. I'm not asking you to change to fit my lifestyle. But the only way you're going to stay in my life is to change your lifestyle. If you go out there, if you quit using and all of that stuff, and you're in your recovery for 3 or 4 years, come talk to me. But before that, don't bother me. Don't bother me. And here's the deal. Even after you've been in your recovery for 2 or 3 or 4 years, you can still be a trigger to me. Because you and I used to do that together. And you can still be a trigger to me. So it may be a good idea for that never to get back together. Because there's 8 billion people on the face of the earth. And the Seekers, y'all remember that old rock and roll group, the Seekers? That girl would sing, "I'll never find another you." And that was pretty good. They did pretty well as a group, but that's absolutely true. You'll never find another that person, but you may find somebody else that's different from that person, that's better, or at least is sober. So that's what we need to be doing. So, all right, next tip. Don't try to do it alone. And then look, let's remind ourselves that cravings will pass. We talked about the urge to use. The urge to use is going to stay there probably about 8 minutes. Cravings are different than urges. Cravings may stay a little bit longer than that. Cravings may stick with you a couple of times. Sometimes I get a craving for sugar or something like that, and I will. It'll be with me all day long. I just really need it. And I'm going to tell you, there's some good people that work in this company. There's some sweet Christian people who love God and love you guys and love the staff and all of that stuff. But every one of them hate diabetics. Every one of them. There's candy. You go down here, Miss Susan's always got a bowl of candy like that big around, and Miss Caitlin's got candy, and you go into the boss's office, Miss Arlene, the executive director, got a big bowl of candy sitting in her office.
Is that you?
Yeah, that's you.
But when you gonna take us through that? Halloween. We don't even know. Halloween. Yeah, we don't even know.
Yeah. Because I used to in our little facility, we had a bowl about this big around. It was huge. We put that bowl out on the table, and we'd fill that thing up with all kinds of those little bitty candy bars and all of that kind of stuff. And we'd have a meeting, be about this size, but we met in a circle like you're supposed to and all of that kind of stuff, a process group and all of that. And by the end of that group, that bowl would be empty. That bowl we did that for a while, and then we couldn't afford it. So we quit doing that. So that's why we don't have the candy out here, because we as addicts would eat that stuff up like that. So we don't do that. But it is not good. It's not good for me. When I go through there and I look at that stuff, you think that causes a craving in my life? Absolutely. And when I'm craving it, I go back and there it is. Yes, sir.
I know you said you still get the urge for sugar.
Yeah.
Whenever you see it. But I was going to ask, when was the last time you had a strong urge to drink? And does it get easier the longer you're in recovery to say no?
Yeah, that's that's the good news. Yeah, Mr. Parker back there asked if does the cravings, does the urge get less as you go down? Yeah, I've been in recovery for a minute and a half, and yes, it does get easier. The last time I cannot remember. I remember when I first quit. I didn't make it. When I did, I quit 2 or 3 different times. I relapsed about 7 times. And so on the last one of those things, I can remember having a sincere real deep, almost religious experience about needing to drink. My limbic system was screaming and yelling at me and all of this kind of stuff. And that went on for a few days for me. It was hard for me. Getting off of alcohol is the hardest drug out there. It was hard. Getting off of marijuana was nothing. But getting off of the alcohol was way, way, way hard. And then there were a few times that, I made my mind up. I made my commitment to myself, to God, to my family, and everybody else. And I stuck with it that time because I had made that same commitment to those same people the other times as well. But in that time, I stayed. And I will tell you, for a year, I probably had the desire to go back. I have no desire whatsoever to use alcohol right now. I do know that, if I go out and use some alcohol right now, I'm going to be gone.
You ain't coming back.
I'll be right back in it. I'm going to be gone. So I'm not going to I've had people ask, you think you could use one and get back? Yeah, probably. I probably could go use one, have one good cold beer, and then not use again. I probably could do that, but maybe not. Because once you do that, it's just like with sugar. If I eat a cookie, okay, later on that day, I want another cookie. But I want it bad. I want it worse than I wanted that first cookie. And it'd be the same way with that beer. If I drank that beer, okay, later on that afternoon, I drank that one, no big deal. My limbic system would start, and before you know it, I would be back. So yes, it does get easier over time. At some point, we get to the place where, okay, I don't have that. I don't wake up in the morning thinking about booze anymore. I don't go to bed at night thinking about booze anymore. During the day, I never think about it. I can go by a liquor store. I can walk through the liquor aisles in the stores. I can do all of those things. And look, here's the deal. I'm a free man, okay? Now, I do know that, that thing is still there within me. I know that God covers me from all of that. I don't believe He's taken it completely away from me. He does that for other people. But I will tell you, I know that He covers me and He protects me and He keeps me from things I shouldn't be in. Because as a pastor, I go to, I do weddings. And a lot of times when you do weddings, guess what happens? They got an open bar. Yeah. I did one where they had an open bar in the barn. Man, there was so much booze and stuff in there. So as soon as the guy and the girl said, "Well, we do," I said, "All right, y'all, here's my check," and then I left. My wife and I were there, and she was an LCD. She was a friend, and so we married them all up. But they wanted to get a picture of all of us, and they said, "Okay, Pastor, you stand here, and everybody gonna stand there, and we're gonna have everybody holding a flute of champagne." I said, I think the world will understand why your pastor is not holding a flute of champagne. Yeah. But yeah, it does get better. This is a real good news for us because I'm going to guarantee you, if you stayed at that same level of craving for the rest of your life, nobody would ever make it. When it's like intense when we first quit. And so that intensity does go down. But if it was still that way 10 years later, it would wear you down, wear you out, and you would never make it. But yes, sir, it does get much, much more good or better. Yeah. So, remind you that these cravings will pass. Have you ever had that experience when you're sick where you can't remember what it feels like to not be sick? I have been sick for so long that I didn't even know what it felt like to be healthy. Didn't know what it felt like to feel good. And that's when I would go and use alcohol, use marijuana, something, because I didn't know what it was to feel healthy. And so if we hold on long enough to get ourselves into a place where we're really healthy, we're never going to want to go back to that. Made it 10 minutes. All right, so these are going to pass. The same things happens with cravings. And when we're craving, we'll crave a little while, and we won't remember what it's like not to be in a place of craving for the drug. But I'm going to tell you, at some point, we will get to that place. It will go away. Give it time. Time is our friend. Believe it or not, that you're going to get well. Believe it or not, that feeling of craving, of I got to have it, will go away. And that's some of the best news we've ever had. The best news I've ever had about my addiction is that it is a disease. But because before that, I was just a morally corrupt person with very, very poor willpower. But this stuff doesn't have anything to do with my morality. It doesn't have anything to do with my willpower. If it did, if it was willpower, we'd all quit. We'd all be done. We just hold on a few minutes and we're done. But it's not about that. It is a disease, and it has. But the thing that the reason it's good news that it's a disease, if it's a disease, what does that mean? You can be treated. And there's a treatment for every disease out there. You may not be able to cure that disease, but there is a treatment for that disease. We talked about HIV this week. There's no cure for that, but there's treatment for it. And people can live a long, full life. There's no cure for this, but there's treatment for it. And we can live a long, full life. And when you're 95 years old, you can still be an alcoholic but not have drank. And it is not necessary for your life for you to use drugs or alcohol. It's not. Your limbic system will tell you it is, but you don't have to. And here's one of the other really good things. We don't have to listen to our limbic system. We don't have to listen to that system that's in our brain that's telling us that we have to use it, because you don't have to use it. So give it time. Believe it or not, those cravings will go away. And over a period of time, you're going to be at a place where it's like you've never had it. That doesn't mean that you can go out and use, so you feel like right now, I'm fine. I'm in good shape. I feel good. The food poisoning that hit me yesterday is gone. I feel great today. But that doesn't mean that I can go out and use. Y'all remember why? What's the word?
One is never enough.
Well, that's exactly right. That's what AA says. But what's the word we learned the other day? You weren't here, so you don't know it. And look, even the people over here don't know it. Tetrahydroquinone.
Okay.
Yeah, so what does tetrahydroquinone do? Hides in your brain, keeps that addiction alive, and when even after 30 years of not using, when we drink that beer, it opens up that whole addiction, so we're at the same level of addiction that we were before. This is why we want to be careful about, we don't want to be careful about, we want to make sure we don't go use and relapse again, because we're going to be at that same level of addiction that we always were. So that's why, look, this is one of the reasons we can't be doing the relapse thing. So if we're in recovery, we're in treatment, not recovery. Being in treatment doesn't put us in recovery. But if we're in treatment, we've been sober for 3-4 weeks, and we go out and have a beer, what happens? The tetrahydroquinone wakes up, you're at that same level. And I've had people who have relapsed in treatment sit in my office and tell me, I feel like I'm still in my recovery. Well, then you're fooling yourself, because you're not. You're still using. You're not in your recovery if you're relapsed. That's, you need to get that ignorant thought out your mind, because you're still using. You haven't begun your recovery again. You're not even in sobriety yet. You're still using. Huh? So if somebody sneaks something in here and uses it, and we've all seen how that works out, right? Somebody sneaks something in here and uses it and stuff like that, they're not anywhere near recovery. They're not even in sobriety. They're still using. So we have to know the feeling is going to go away. It's going to go away. So here's the deal. This is one of the places that causes us to get back to that place of relapse that we don't want to get back to. We're going to have to make some sacrifices. You'll have to make sacrifices beyond giving up the drug. See, there's other things that I'm going to have to give up. There's other stuff that I'm going to. Just giving up the drug is not good enough. So if you if you previously used doing specific activities like watching a game on TV, going to concerts, or spending time with your friends, you may need to make some changes. That's what we talk about, going out with old people, places, and things. You got to give up more than just the drug. Now, let me share this. Anybody can give up the drug for a minute. Anybody can do that. But if I'm going to stay in my recovery, if I'm going to get into a real recovery, I've got to give up the things beyond the drug. I've got to give up some of those things that I used to do. Now, and I think I told y'all, but I used to do a lot of drinking and driving. That's what I did. I'd go buy me a bottle of vodka, and I'd get they had a sausage that was on a stick, and then they'd stick a bun on top of the sausage on that stick, and I'd go out. For some reason, I'd be drinking the vodka, driving through neighborhoods, looking at people's houses, and I still do that. I enjoy doing that. I just don't drink when I do it now. And I'd eat the bun and eat the sausage, and in my addicted, screwed up little goofy mind, I'm thinking, if the police stop me, they won't know I've been drinking because I had the sausage and the biscuit on my mind and on my breath. They won't know. That's why they say, get out and walk that line. What line? I would walk it, officer, but it won't quit moving. So, all of that stuff. So you may need to make some changes. This might mean not watching the game. There are people who are sports fanatics, and they can't imagine not watching every game that ever plays. Okay, here's the deal. Now look, I don't mind sports. They're not worth my recovery. They're not. I like to go to concerts. I used to go to concerts. It's not worth my recovery. Instead of that, we had to make some changes. My wife and I go to dinner theaters. The dinner theaters we go to don't serve booze. So, they'll bring out, they have a good catered meal there. I've never had a bad meal at the deal. We got one coming up, not today, but next Friday. And so we're going to go to Deer Park and watch a deal. Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask you, where is that?
Oh, they're all over.
That makes it so fun.
It is fun. They're all over the place. They have them here. They have the Beaumont players that do that here in Beaumont. And so they're all over the place. They have the Orange players. They do that in Orange. Y'all know where Terrell Park is?
Well, I'm talking about the play in.
I don't know.
Dinner and.
Yeah, dinner theater.
Yeah.
I bet they're here in Beaumont too. I bet there's a dinner
All
theater.
they got to do is go by Enterprise. They got the.
Oh, yeah.
All special events.
Yeah, and it is fun, but you got to. I usually go to bed at 8:00. The dinner over there starts at about 7, and so they open the doors at 6. At 7, you get served, and there's a lot of people, so they got to get you in. At dinner, you get served, and then probably about 8:00, the play starts, and you get out there about 11. And sometimes the plays are really good. The Sound of Music was excellent. A prequel to Peter Pan was horrific. Horrible. We've actually walked out on one. But so some of those things that you used to, you may not be watching the game. You might need to make some new friends who are sober friends. And that doesn't mean, people who just get high or drunk every now and then. That means people who don't drink. You do know, like I said, there's 8 billion people on the face of the earth. You get it? No, he got away after all that. There's 8 billion people on the face of the earth. There's a lot of people out there that don't use drugs or alcohol. Maybe not in our circle of friends. What does that mean? We need to get out of our circle of friends and get into a square. a friend. You know, like Elvis said, he was singing to that girl. He said, "Now, baby, you're so square. I don't care. You know, my friends are square. They don't. I don't have friends who use drugs or alcohol. Most of my friends are in recovery. Most of my friends, my friends, are in recovery. I can think of one who's not. Yeah, he's not using. He just never had. Yeah, yeah. So that's a good thing. So making new friends or not. Now look, these folks and me and all of your counselors and everybody else are going to agree with that fact. They will tell you you have to have new friends. You have to have. You can't go back to the old people, old places, old things. However, they also know that this is really hard, not easy. Yes, sir.
So let's just say, man, you're others in doing drugs.
Yeah.
So how would you go about it?
How would I go about it?
Yeah, I mean, just a rough draft because let's just say she's trying to stay clean and you still want to.
Well, and you know, if I have somebody in my life that I'm in love with and you're romantically involved with, and that person is still using, then in my own personal life, then I'm going to love them from afar. I will let them know, hey, you know what? You have a place in my heart that's never going to heal. It's never going to go away. I'm going to love you, but I have to deal with myself. I can't be high anymore. I can't be drunk anymore. Look, you know, I know the things I did are reprehensible. People's lives were changed by what I did. I'm not doing that again. And even though I love you, you're not worth that to me. Now, here's the deal. If that person is willing to get into their own recovery and become committed to that, then we can have a committed relationship and perhaps help each other in that. But they have to really, really get to a place where they're really committed to doing that. I'm going to need you to go away, go somewhere, get into your recovery, be there for 3-4 years. Look, I'm serious about my recovery. I'm more serious about my recovery than I am about having a relationship with anybody on the face of the earth except for the Lord Jesus Christ. He is worth more to me than my recovery. I give up my recovery tomorrow if the Lord Jesus said so, but He is never going to do that. He's the one that helped me get into it. But anybody else, my wife, y'all know we've been married for 52 years. If she came and said, hey, I'm going to start drinking bourbon, okay. I'm having my trailer, I'm having my RV repaired. Did I tell y'all about that already? Yeah, rot roof rot. They're repairing that this week. Okay, I'm going to live in the trailer and you can have the house. I'm not going to subject myself to that because my recovery. And I'm really fortunate. God has been really good to me. I've got 2 sons and a daughter, and I've got a bunch of grandkids and all of that. None of them use drugs or alcohol. It's an amazing thing. I have 1 son who smokes, and the rest of them don't even smoke. And I can tell you this, and I have in the past. I said not being prideful, but look, I do have a lot of pride in the statement that none of those kids, none of those grandkids have I ever heard use profanity around me. Does that mean that they don't? I'm sure. Look, they're grown people. So I have a son that's 48, one that's 50. My daughter's a little bit above 50. And so, I'm sure they all know those words and have used them. They've never used them around their mom or dad. Never heard them. So that to me is just, hey, that's just out there. That's fantastic. But, and one of the reasons is because they've never seen their dad or their mom ever use profanity, ever smoke, ever use alcohol or drugs. By the time our kids got there, we were at that place. So that's why you need to show your kids what you want them to do. You're going to make some changes, and here's the deal: it's not watching that. That's really, really hard, but that's what making a sacrifice is about. Is there anything here that's to you? Is there anything in your life that's worth making a sacrifice on that level for? If somebody came to you and said, if you don't do this, we're going to kill your husband. If you don't do that, we're going to kill your wife. If you don't do this, we're going to kill your kids. Would you make a sacrifice for those people?
Yes. Yeah.
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 If somebody came up with a gun and said, I'm going to shoot somebody, okay, you're going to have to shoot me first before you shoot my wife or shoot my kid. I'm a better target, Bubba. Come give it a shot here. Yeah. So I'm willing to sacrifice my life for some of those people, right? Right, absolutely. So if I'm willing to sacrifice my life for those people, my being in recovery is going to affect those people a lot. So what am I willing to sacrifice so that they can have a better life? Just alcohol, drugs. Why do I use alcohol, drugs? I like to feel goofy. I'm not happy with my own reality, so I'm changing my reality by putting a mood-altering drug in my system. Okay, so here's the deal. We know things can get a little bad. We know it's going to take a sacrifice. So have a plan when things do get bad. So getting into my recovery, let me tell you something, at some point, they're going to get bad for a minute. The deal is, the wonderful thing about it is, they're not going to stay bad. They're going to stay bad for a minute, but they're not going to stay bad forever. They do get people. They do get better. People get fired. You ever been fired?
Yep.
I've been fired. Hearts get broken. Oh, yeah. I told y'all about Melody Jackson. Yeah, I'll never forget that girl. Sometimes people leave us forever. I am a complicated grief counselor. People have talked to me about people who died 30 years ago, and they have not they have not moved on with their life or all of that kind of stuff. People die, people go away. This happens. We're all gonna do that. So people leave us forever. We need to develop a plan to get through these major life challenges without the use of drugs before they happen. What could we do? What would we do? Something happened that was just a major life thing. It's just horrible. It's terrible. First thing our limbic system is going to tell us is, man, a drug or a shot of bourbon would be so helpful in a situation like this.
So what would you do?
Yeah, what would you do?
I would talk to my counselor.
Yeah. We should have some people we can go talk to. We can have some things that we can do. I'm going to go, if something terrible happens in my life, my wife passed away today, I would take care of her, I would honor her, and then I'd go work out. I'd go somewhere. I would go visit with people that I know are sober. When we go on our trip, we're going to be visiting with my cousin in Alabama, and we're going to be visiting with my brother in Mississippi. Both of those folks are sober. So, we're going to sit and talk sober stuff. We're not going to be talking about, well, where can I get a little something, something? I just need a little book, a little something, something. And we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about others. So, we need to have that plan there before it happens, though. We need to have a plan. And look, if we don't have a plan, what happens? You can wind up relapsing because we don't have a plan. We need to have a plan. So, what if you can't come up with a plan?
Have someone do it for you. If you're that incompetent.
Yeah, he said have somebody do it for you. Now, I'm not a real fan of having someone do it for you. I want them maybe to help you do your own. Because here's the deal. I can make you a good plan.
Don't make you follow.
Yeah. If I make the plan, that means I have bought into it, but you may not have. That's why when we do you a treatment plan, you're supposed to be sitting right there buying into it. You got to have input into it, saying, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. If you don't, then you're not going to buy into that at all, and usually your treatment plan doesn't get done. So we've got to have that sober person who cares for us that's going to come and help us do part of that. Help us put that together. Sometimes it's hard to come up with a plan. But then when I have that plan, I need to write that plan out. If something horrible happens, this is what I'm going to do. We just had people who I have had in my lifetime, people who have lost their children. Not too long ago, 4 or 5 months ago, had a elderly man in our church. He and his wife, they're both in their 70s, and their son died. And he was 51, 51 or 2. He was a black belt in some type of crazed up karate or something like that. He was a Marine, was in the Marine Corps. He was, man, rock hard, solid, and they found him dead in his apartment with all his workout stuff around him.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you
Yeah. And they don't know. They still don't know. They still haven't told us why he croaked, but he did. So that kind of stuff happened. And I'm over there loving on them and saying, oh man, that's terrible, that's horrible. And it turned out this is their second son who died. They had 2 sons, and both of them died before. So, you've got, you never know what's going to happen. So you have to have the plan in place. You have to be prepared. I don't want any of that crazy mess to happen to me. My kids are supposed to outlive me. Yeah, they need to come to my funeral. I don't go to theirs. However, if that happens, I'm going to have a plan that does not include going to the bar. It doesn't include getting drunk. So have that plan before things get bad, because they're going to. Here's another one that's really, really important for us to remember. Don't get complacent in your recovery. Once you get into recovery, don't get so confident that you got this thing that you'll go to the bar. Somebody calls you up and say, hey, come over to the bar. We're having a thing here. I told you all about my daughter's birthday. My son-in-law called me and said, hey, we're going to have Billy's birthday. Will you guys come? I said, well, of course we'll come. That's my daughter. We got her a little gift. We'll come. And they had her birthday in Tia Juanita. Y'all know what Tia Juanita is?
Yeah.
It's a bar. Yeah, it ain't nothing but a bar. It's a bar. We need to differentiate between bars that serve food and restaurants that serve food. Because you can go to Cheddar's, which is a great restaurant. You go in this way and go that way, it's a restaurant. You go in there and go this way, it's a bar. Right? So it's a restaurant that serves food. You go to Tia Juanita's, it's a bar that serves some food, which is, And so we were in there about 10 minutes. That's not the place we needed to be. So I'm not complacent. Look, I've been in my recovery for a while, but I am not complacent. I am not overly confident. I know sitting in there can bring back all kinds of stuff. Can bring back it's a whole bunch of triggers in there, a whole bunch of memories and stuff like that. And so we got out of there pretty quickly. So don't become complacent. If you someday consider having just a glass of wine with dinner, don't make that decision. Don't do that. That's not something you should do. If you've struggled with addiction in the past, you are going to just wake the addiction up. What's it called? Tetrahydroquinone. And we call it, look, we don't always go around spouting that word. We use the word thig to stand in for it. So that thig wakes up. So we got to know, okay, here's the deal. If I'm serious about my recovery, having a glass of wine with my meal is not an option for me. Cutting the grass and having a nice cold beer in the process is not an option for me. Not gonna work. Can you drink O'Doul's?
Oh,
No, you can't drink O'Doul's. O'Doul's supposed to be alcohol-free beer. Yeah, it's got something in it because he said it had 0.5 alcohol in it, and it has to have a little bit of alcohol in it to bind all of those chemicals together that's in beer. And if you'll notice, beer seems to slip down your throat quicker, easier than water will. You have to gulp water, but beer just kind of goes down your throat. It's because it has the alcohol in there that helps it slide down your throat. So there's a little bit of it in there. And when you're doing stuff like drinking O'Doul's, that means you are romancing the drug. So when people are in recovery who are drinking O'Doul's, they're just preparing themselves to drink other stuff. So can't drink O'Doul, can't drink non-alcoholic wine, can't do all that stuff. So just don't become complacent. Don't think that you've got this thing, because as the moment you think you've got this thing's got you. So we need to be careful. But here's the deal, and if you do relapse, don't give up. Is relapse acceptable?
Yeah.
No. Relapse is not acceptable. And here's the reason relapse is not acceptable. Relapse is it's part of recovery. Most people are going to relapse once or twice while they're trying to get into recovery, but it is not an acceptable thing, because if we relapse, about 50% of the people who relapse stay out there. They don't come back to treatment. They're done. They figured out they can't do this thing. They can't do this sober life thing. And so they stay out there and become worthless. They become a burden on their families. They do all that kind of stuff. Or they die in their addiction. They have a car wreck and get killed. They have a car wreck and kill my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. So it's not acceptable at all. Once it happens, we need to know that it happens and then move away from that, but we don't need to give up. So here's the deal. A lot of people find it helpful to keep track of how long they've been sober. We all do that. Yeah, just about everybody. But don't confuse that count with the true goal of living a good recovery life. If you're at day 100 in sobriety, that's a good thing. That's good. But if you make a mistake and end back at day 0, know that you are not starting over completely. You're starting over in your count. But you have gained a lot of information. You know now that if you go down there and you walk into that convenience store, you're going to relapse. So you stay your butt out of there. You know now that if you go over there and you talk to Bubba, you're going to relapse. So stay away from Bubba. You have learned some things from your relapse. We should have learned some things from our relapse. So we've gained knowledge, experience. We should have gained a little bit of confidence. In other words, slipping up, relapsing, is not a license to go on a binge and keep using. That's what happens a lot of the time. We stay out there. So what happens if you relapse? Start all over again. Be man enough to man up. Be woman enough to woman up and say, I've done this. This is what I did. Hey guys, I relapsed. But I've started back over. Y'all help me stay in that. So, and this is something we'll be talking about next week a little bit. I had meant to get there today, but as you can see, we need to come up with some new rituals. We'll be talking about rituals next week a little bit. What's a ritual?
Something you do every day.
Something you do every day. You do it the same way. It's the ritual. We have rituals surrounding our drinking. Rituals surrounding our use of drugs and alcohol. When this happens, this is what I do. This is the ritual I get into. It carries me to that place where I'm not going to be able to stay in my recovery. So, how do you celebrate holidays? How do you celebrate promotion or any other happy occasion? I know people who get drunk on Christmas. What a wonderful way to celebrate the birth of the baby Jesus. Let's all get drunk. So, if your answer includes any sort of drug, you need to get creative, figure out something new, go wild with a hobby for the day, treat yourself to a nice dinner, take a weekend trip, make sure it's something you can get excited about. Here's the deal. Relapse is something that will happen, but it is not something. I've had people come and tell me, I don't know what happened. Yes, you do. Relapse is not something that just happened. Relapse begins about 3 months before it happens. A lot of people in here, we get out, we go relapse. And people say, well, I don't know what happened. Yes, you did. While you were here, you were planning your relapse. It was already formulating in your mind. You're already deciding how to do it, when to do it. All of that was coming. Whether you realize it or not, that's happening. So if you have that in your mind, if that's coming up, you need to talk to your counselor about that so that we can do some thought stopping and get that crap out of your mind. Thank you for being here today.